you know, I heard all the stories online about Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's gonna be real bad. It's gonna be one of the worst games ever. And you know, I was just saying the whole time, I think it's gonna be a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's gonna be worth the full price. I think it'll be worth like $30, $40 at the most. But from what I'm hearing from people who don't really care about the culture war nonsense, it's not a good game. I mean, it's an alright game, but there's just too much in it that's not good to make it good. I don't know. Let's see what Mutahar has to say about it, because I almost bought this game because I didn't play Valhalla, I didn't play Odyssey or Origin, and it kind of looked like an old school Assassin's Creed game, but modernized and also in Japan, which everybody's been screaming for since Assassin's Creed 2. And I think that they messed it all up. Ubisoft is 100% cooked. They ain't coming back from this. They're gonna be breaking up, I guarantee it.
Assassin's Creed Shadows is more bloated than Windows 11, ladies and gentlemen. And unlike Windows 11, I don't got the option to debloat this. So if you want to walk into this video with a quote burned into your head, leave that as...
You know, you would be able to debloat the game if they allowed you to mod it, and I guarantee that they aren't allowing mods and it's got to be online and all of that nonsense.
The actual quote, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to give you an idea of what kind of quality we're expecting from Assassin's Creed Shadows, I'm going to play this clip for you, and I swear to God, this is going to blow your mind.
Resentment can grow quietly without much warning after a storm. Mushrooms can too. Shiitake?
What was that? What was that acting? I mean, I understand it's supposed to be kind of, you know, Japanese sounding, but I watch a lot of Japanese stuff. I play a lot of Japanese stuff. That was absolutely insane that they let that go through.
Mushrooms. The smell of dirt, grass, and rain.
You might be like, whoa, Muda, you're joking with me. There ain't no way the voice acting is that good. No, the reality is that is actually better than the regular voice acting.
It's a coward's weapon.
Ah, that was the feeling I couldn't place. It's you from that night.
What is the writing of this? Please tell me it's not this bad. Please tell me. That sounds like the acting from Dragon Age the Veilguard.
So will you gun me down like a coward?
So much emotion.
I have a better idea. Why don't you tell me what will make this right?
You think I would...
You are in the strongest position. You offer life, I...
No.
I do that. You'll have no...
So you won't?
No.
Then you're of no use to me at all.
You know, if you listen to this game very briefly in English, you'll probably uncover that this is in fact ChatGPT levels of voice acting. I swear to God, the deliveries on the lines here reminds me of games like Resident Evil on the PlayStation 1. It reminds me of games like Shenmue 2. And the thing is, those games are obviously really old. I would expect a lot from a quadruple A game from Ubisoft.
I forgot that a quadruple A game is still a thing. How much did this game cost? How much did this game cost Ubisoft to make? How long did it take to make this? They were probably working on it before Valhalla came out. That was like Kung Pao acting, with no charm at all. And just the way it looks when they're talking, man, what a downer.
But that's kind of the level we're getting at. Thankfully, the game has a Japanese audio track that you should absolutely enable unless you want to absolutely stick knives into your ears. Now, the thing about it is, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, I'm happy because I've got a Some Ordinary Gamers hoodie, glow in the dark, nice coffee mug. Check it out, someordinarygamers.store. Beautiful stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Just wanted to promote it, ladies. All right, that is who we're sponsored by, ourselves. But to get into the reality of Assassin's Creed, okay, after the shameless plugs indeed, this game is full of complete shameless plugs, okay? This game is, in fact, a complete bloated experience. Now, not to say that that's a bad thing, okay? What do I mean by that, Moody? You're giving me mixed signals. Well, if you look at Assassin's Creed's Metascore, right, it pretty much is exactly what I would expect a game like this to have. 81 in the Metascore. Now, 81 is not a bad score whatsoever, okay? A lot of games score in their, high 70s, and they're
Usually on Metacritic, whatever score that they give on Metacritic, I take about 10 points off, depending on the game. A game like this is one that I will take 10 points off because there's going to be a lot of culture war stuff, a bunch of people boosting it even though they're not going to be playing it, or even though they didn't play it. I've been hearing a lot about people who want to buy this because they heard it's gay and they want to own the chuds and they're not going to play it. I literally have people in my YouTube comments on X, on threads that have told me this. I don't actually believe that they're going to do that because who's going to spend $70 plus for a game they're not going to play just for the culture war?
They're pretty decent games too. Very few games get into that 90 and higher bracket. So for most of this stuff, 81 seems to be about right, okay? The general audience is enjoying this, I guess. The game reviewers seem to be enjoying this, and some people have said this is kind of like a hit or miss. Now, the reason why I don't take, professional game reviews or game journalism that seriously is this is the same publication, IGN, that gives this game an 8. You know what review score they gave to Dragon Age Veilguard?
It was a 9. I already know it was a 9.
That dog shit. If Dragon Age Veilguard can get a 9 on this website, I'm literally just gonna have to eat my own fucking ass at this point. So, anyways, I got this game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, a bit.
Nobody listens to the game journalists anymore. At least nobody who's intelligent listens to game journalists anymore. I listen to people like Asmongold and Mutahar and Legendary Drops, Legacy Killa. I listen to all of those guys when I want to get a game that's going to be good. And they were all telling me that this game was going to be dog shit. And they were right, apparently, because that is inexcusable.
Earlier, and by the way, I have to start off by saying is I am not paid by Ubisoft. I have no contract with Ubisoft. I'm not sponsored by Ubisoft. This is very much me getting the game from a retailer that was willing to sell the game earlier. I didn't get the game early. I didn't get a digital copy early like some other reviewers. I got the game on my own dime. I am financially invested into it the same way that you, the person buying this game, are going to be financially invested too. So I just want to get that out of the picture. Now, there's some positives to Assassin's Creed Shadows. It looks beautiful. There's every moment you play the game, I will say, visually speaking, Assassin's Creed games have never really been one to put me down. They've never been any game to, truly, be a bad looker.
I think the beauty of it is going to be distracting a lot of people who were glazing it right at the beginning of playing it, and then when they get later on through the game, they're like, wow, this game is just not what I thought it was going to be. I'm very, very bored. And there's too much things left to do. Literally happened to a bunch of my friends who got Valhalla and were like, this game is a 10 out of 10. And I kept telling them, bro, it's not a 10 out of 10 when you first play it. You can't give it a review score until you're done playing it. And none of them finished it.
Any Assassin's Creed game after Assassin's Creed 4 has typically been a pretty good game, a sort of system showcase. And Assassin's Creed Shadow is no light version of it.
Also, a thing that I've been hearing a lot is, yes, it looks beautiful, but it's flat, and the level design is not so good. And when I say flat, I mean, not that the ground is flat, even though it totally is in this area. Look how flat the ground is. But, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, there's nothing interesting going on. It's all basically the same. And it changes through the seasons. That's what I've been hearing. Could be wrong, because I haven't played this game. I haven't even really looked at what this game is about or anything that's in it.
The map is ungodly huge. It's pretty much like kind of this weird amalgamation of Japan with a lot of cities spread around, a lot of open wilds to go traverse through, and of course the visuals here also involve a lot of good lighting work. Some of the texture work is pretty decent. The ray tracing implementation is actually quite interesting in that like it really is dramatically different, in my opinion, from the quality mode over to the performance mode. Every single like second of footage you're seeing in this video about this game is delivered from the quality mode on the PlayStation 5. So I'm running the game at 30 frames with the ray tracing attached on top of it, right? I think it's substantially better looking than the 60 frames. But that is, again, the visual side of it. Obviously, from the audio perspective, probably want to have Japanese voice acting because that is so much better than the English voice acting. It's not even a comparison. But let's just get off fawning about the graphics for a minute. What about the gameplay? You know, the thing you're doing for most of the time. And this is where I've had a bit of contention to deal with. Because I am one of those people that loves Assassin's Creed. Okay, I've been playing this franchise since the first game, and
I have also been playing this franchise since the first game. I stopped when, what was it? It was after Black Flag. It was like Unity. What was it? Assassin's Creed Unity, Rogue, something. One of them was broken, and I hated it. But Assassin's Creed 1, I played right after it came out, not knowing what it was. I just went and rented it at the local game store or video store. Assassin's Creed 2, I got that one day one. I loved it. I loved it all the way through. I did everything in Assassin's Creed 2. And then I got Brotherhood day one. Did almost everything. I think I even collected all the feathers. And then Revelations, I didn't like it so much. It was still really good. I still finished the story. I just didn't do all the extra stuff. Assassin's Creed 3 was meh. And then 4 blew my mind again just as much as Brotherhood did. I want to go back and play Assassin's Creed 2 now that I'm thinking about it.
you know, Assassin's Creed Shadows, I knew walking into this wasn't going to be like old school Assassin's Creed. It wasn't going to be the one massive city that you constantly are traversing around in, doing assassinations. And this is one of those country ordeals where you're actually going around on horseback, thousands of meters between distance to distance. You're going between like actual location to location. There is a massive open world for you to traverse, and this game is not shy about it. From the very first get-go, from the very first hour and a half of the game, you're expected to pretty much traverse a opening region that is pretty huge. It's a massive opening region of the game that you're going to be traveling around, doing your initial assassinations. And
I saw that. I saw that he couldn't crawl over the top of the roof for some reason. You have the prone on the roof, but you can't crawl over that one little area. I know that's a little bit immersion breaking. I'm not going to take off points for that, though.
And work in. But that is sort of the starter. Now, the actual gameplay to me, and when I started off by saying that it was bloated, was I want to kind of just walk you through with how the game's gameplay loop works. So, in the game, you are playing as two assassins. You're playing as two characters, Yasuke and Naoe. So the game starts off as Yasuke, and it starts you off with his hour of combat tutorialization, and then of course it switches to Naoe. Now, the first entire act of the game does not have Yasuke in it. You're basically playing as Naoe, and so that's effectively 10 hours of the game. She is by far, I would say, the more important protagonist in the story, in that the actual story, the events that revolve forward,
Wait, hold up. I thought that you didn't have to play as Yasuke. So you do have to play as Yasuke at the beginning to do his tutorial. And then you don't have to play as Yasuke anymore? That's not what I was hearing.
Whole Assassins versus Templars kind of revolve and are built off of her. Yasuke is a character you switch off later on in the game, but I really don't think his prevalence is as important as really the marketing or a lot of the controversy led to. But I'll get to the characters in a bit different. The actual gameplay loop for Assassin's Creed basically has you going to an objectives board, for instance, right? And you have a whole bunch of different things to complete. You can upgrade your hideout, which is, instead of in previous games where you really were just buying a few buildings, here you are also buying buildings, but you're placing them down on a grid-based pattern and actually customizing your hideout, your assassin's hideout, on your own terms.
That sounds really, really cool. Sounds really awesome, but why is it in this game that's already completely bloated? It's like they were just, throwing ideas at the wall and see what stuck. And if they could put it in the game, they did. Because the more the merrier, right? Even though it makes no goddamn sense.
And so when you're building this hideout, you're building like actual locations inside there that are more attributed to certain things. Like, for instance, a blacksmith that upgrades your gear. You've got like an entire study section that helps with your, scouts that go out into the wild. So it feels like natural progression, and that's something I do enjoy. I think for most people, this is not going to be an overly complicated system. If anything, it's going to be something fun for you to constantly go back to and build up and naturally see your assassin organization blow up over time.
It does seem like fun. It seems like a lot of fun, but I've heard of the other little mini games that are thrown around in Assassin's Creed Shadows. There's just too many. There's too many things that don't need to be there, and they didn't pay attention to the areas they should have made better, and they just threw all these things in there. I don't know, man. Maybe they should have just made a separate game, like a Nintendo Switch game or something, where that was what you do.
But as you're playing this game, right, the actual core crux of it is the assassinations. So when starting off as Naue, you go to the objectives board, and beyond just building your hideout, there are quests, right? There are targets for you to go find. And initially, these are the sort of proto-Templar groups, the people that are hiding in the shadows and controlling the world. So you typically highlight your cursor over one of them, and there's usually like a quest or two that is attributed before you get to the final showpiece assassination section, where you kill each and every single one of these people on the list. So the thing is, you go to the objective, and it basically gives you a sort of location, right? Now, in previous Assassin's Creed games in this vein, you typically are given like these three sort of like indicators of where your target could be. So it's like in this region, in this city, in this cardinal direction. So using that, you're supposed to basically look at the map yourself, deduce, and go to that location and find these people.
So they just give you the location of the person directly, and you don't have to do any kind of discoverability. Is that what you're telling me, Mudahar? You telling me that the game design in this game is worse than games that came out over 15 years ago?
Now, as you go to those locations, you can basically hold the L2 button, and you can use your, I guess, assassin intuition to sort of look for a blue dot where your actual objective's supposed to be. You can look for yellow dots where you can see what you can loot. You can look for the white dots, which are all the things you're supposed to collect. So it's kind of like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but just bumped to the nth degree. And that's where I kind of say most of the gameplay is for the hours you play the game.
So none of my friends are going to finish this game. They're going to give it 10 out of 10, and then they're not going to finish it because they're going to get bored probably about halfway through, because there's going to be too many things to do, and they're going to be like 60 hours in, and they're just going to give up. And then this isn't going to go down in history as one of the great games like they were talking about online.
Right? Like, basically rinse and repeat. Go to this location, hold the L2 button, try to look around where that blue dot is, and then go there. Now, there's also a full, like, assistive exploration mode, so if you don't want to do any of that and you just want the actual point, you can just do that. But then again, this is literally a system designed so that you have to put in some level of effort to figure things out. Now, this game has taken away the Assassin's, like, bird UAV that was in, like, the last 3 games that was able to spot your actual, like, objective at any given moment from, like, the sky. So over here you have scouts, and their job is basically to either gather resources that you've marked. They can exist literally to help you find these like points on a map. So if you don't want to go looking through, or if you don't want to like actually like look through an entire area based off those deduction reasonings, you can basically put your cursor over that area of the map, send in a scout, and the scout will just narrow down the location you need to be in. So again, these systems exist to, I guess, add a level of immersion. Like, it makes you kind of feel like you're running a brotherhood, like you have to send out scouts to gather intelligence.
You know what I think? I've been playing a lot of Sly Cooper recently, and I think that the sneak mechanics, I think the way the enemies see you immediately as soon as they get eyes on you and they come after you, and you die in one hit. Unless you got a magnet, then it takes 2 hits. Sly Cooper was a harder game, and it was made for kids.
You have to, build your assassin brotherhood up. You have to like also, gear up a little bit too. There's also an entire system where you unlock a dojo where you can hire people in the, you can find like characters in the wild that they can join you. They can join your actual organization, the League. and you can use them in combat, or you can use them in actual, like, you know, the actual gameplay. It's kind of similar to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood or Revelations or 3, where you actually had to recruit your Brotherhood and you can bring them on like missions with you, you can call them on for help, you can use them to open new avenues of gameplay. And while the system I don't think is as intense as that, the system that's present over here does have you building up a roster of characters that occasionally will come and really help you out. For instance, one of the initial characters you get is the sumo lady. I think her name is Yuya. And the best part about her is she hits like a fucking truck. So for instance, when I was doing this one assassination early on, right, for the main characters, they basically told me to go to this whole different strand of assassinations to do, like 8 different assassinations in the city of Kyoto. So I go and do an assassination and I find out all the other targets are in the exact same location as me. So initially at this moment in time, I'm running away and like basically stabbing and trying to like just jerry-rig this combat system to work until I realize I can call her in and she can effectively kill every single person, and all I have to do is just stab them in the neck and I basically get like 8 kills in a row.
They actually, instead of building a good game with a good story and then adding stuff into it when it was done to fill it out, they, I think, just built all of these systems alongside each other, and then whenever it came to a good point, they were like, you know what, here, there we go, that's a game. Got all these things that a game needs to have, right? Got all these things to keep you invested for 200 hours plus.
Actually just insane. So beyond all of it, right, that's one of the cool things that you can do. The gameplay, on the other hand, beyond just the same gameplay loop of finding your assassinations out in the wild, which most of the assassinations are like that. Aside from the main kills, most of the actual targets you'll find are in the wild. And generally speaking, it's just going to a location, looking for that blue dot, like where's the blue dot? Going there and just putting a knife in somebody's neck. That's it. So as far as the gameplay goes,
Bro, I remember in the classic Assassin's Creed games where you had to go through this long level and there were cutscenes a lot of times because it was just like part of the story of the game. And then when you find your target, you don't just kill them. You like, there's this cutscene where you're inside the Animus, like in between zone, talking to the guy, and then you lay him to rest. Whatever happened to that?
there are 2 characters. You've got Yasuke and you've got Naoe. Now, Yasuke is your combat character. His claim to fame is beating the living shit out of anything, kicking somebody so hard in the fucking chest that their actual organs fly out at Mach 5. This man has his own repertoire of heavy weapons, heavy armor, and he's not so much the stealth character. He's the guy that you call on when you want to beat the living shit out of everything around you.
He was the answer to the Dark Souls popularity. They thought that they were going to get people who like the Dark Souls, Black Myth Wukong, the Souls-like games, Elden Ring. Did you really think that this was going to be as good as Elden Ring? There were people telling me that this was going to be better than Elden Ring. Actually, this game was going to be a 10 out of 10. A 9 out of 10. What score did Elden Ring get on IGN, on Metacritic?
And then you've got Naoe, which is the character I've put most of my game time in, probably 95% of it, being the stealth character. So her ability is not so much combat. In fact, for her, it's ideal that you never touch combat in the first place because every character hits her harder and she hits significantly less harder in return. For her, it's all about sticking in the shadows. Now, this is where the stealth for the gameplay is supreme. So let me talk about this for a minute. Assassin's Creed games, for me, have never really been stealth masterpieces. There's always better games like Thief, like Splinter Cell, like Hitman, for instance.
Like Sly Cooper.
Assassin's Creed is kind of like stealth light. This game kind of flips it. Now, I've been playing this game on expert difficulty for the combat and the stealth. So speaking on expert difficulty, the combat is one where you have to be a little bit more mindful of timings and parries and dodges. Otherwise, you will just get killed like immediately if you're not focusing and paying attention. For the stealth, on the other hand, the time you have to use, this time you have to use a lot of shadows. Light plays a pretty important factor, as does sound now. Visibility is also very important. So there's a new prone mechanic where you're constantly hiding underneath like short grass or you're hiding under buildings. And this adds a whole new dimension of stealth and traversal that I really feel should have been in Assassin's Creed for longer than this game. The verticality at this moment in time has been severely balanced. So
what they should have done is they should have made a smaller game with less things in it. They should have made like an Assassin's Creed Brotherhood 2 and then put these cool new mechanics in it and made it a little bit bigger, made the graphics nice, you know, all those things. But instead you get a bloated mess.
No more standing on top of a building and making sure nobody in the entire area can and they will notice you. In fact, it's actually worse to be at the top of a building than it is to be down in the grass on the ground low, because the enemies will just see you. They're not like vertically challenged in their eyesight anymore. They're not looking at one plane. They can see you just on the rooftop of anything, and they will respond. So generally, sticking in the shadows is like where the game rewards you the most, right? Sticking close inside actual like grass, just basically being out of visibility. That's where the stealth really does come out to be visceral. It comes out to be more intense than...
I get it. I really get it because they want the realism of it. But I think it is more fun to be doing parkour on rooftops and people not paying attention. Especially at night, man. Because, like, all these ninja movies and ninja shows, they do that. They run across rooftops and nobody ever notices them. And I thought that that was going to be a big thing, actually.
Previous games, and if you're somebody that's enjoying the stealth gameplay, this is one game that I really think it itches that mark. It itches that like scratch for the stealth that Assassin's Creed has always, I think, really yearned for. So if you're into the gameplay from that perspective, yeah, it's awesome. Now, when it comes to the multiple dual characters, I personally feel the dual characters in Assassin's Creed Shadows is a very big missed opportunity. So for starters, let's be honest here. I think the main protagonist for this game is probably Naue. Yasuke feels like more of an afterthought, at least from the story perspective. And mind you, I've not completed the story. I haven't.
Actually, I think Yasuke was the first thought and Naue was the afterthought. And then they were like, uh-oh, we're hearing things from people that this isn't good. We better switch the main characters. And they stopped working on Yasuke near the beginning and were working on Naue. Because it's been a couple years. They had enough time to switch them. I'm certain that's what they did. And yeah, they totally missed opportunity with this, because they could have had two stealth characters, but they have completely different kinds of stealth. Like, you could have had one that runs across the rooftops and like does all the parkour stuff, and then the other one be really slow in the shadows.
Been through everything, so maybe that can all change. But Yasuke really feels like a second banana. He's kind of just there for the ride, and very rarely do I find myself switching to him because I don't really enjoy the combat-oriented gameplay of Assassin's Creed Shadows. In fact, I don't really play these games as combat focuses anyway. It's one of the reasons why playing Valhalla for me was just annoying, because of the fact that most of that game, in my opinion, felt like just being thrown into combat scenarios when I wanted to be a stealth player. But from a just storytelling perspective, at no real time do I feel like the game ever utilizes the dual characters properly. So they show up, for instance, after a certain point together doing their investigations in the cutscenes, but that's really all their existence is. They're only in the cutscenes. It was after 10 hours of playing the game that I was in the first mission where Yasuke and Naue were paired together, and typically you were just switching between characters, not like GTA 5 style, like the game would just switch you, like fade out, fade in to another character, and you would just do smaller objectives. Like Yasuke would have to kill like 10 people, Naue would have to sneak through a bunch of people, and that would just be the level of gameplay tossed at you. And by the time I got to this end assassination segment where I had to kill my target, I had Yasuke and Naue standing alongside you. They were literally with each other, like they were in the same frame. And so you get this choice of which character do you want to play as. So I picked Naue because that's my character. That's what I want to do. The game doesn't change the scenario for that specific character. In fact, it's funny because I was expecting these characters were going to be fighting together, right? Like I would use my abilities to assist Yasuke and he would use his brute strength to keep me safe in this combat. Never happened. Never happened.
How insane would it be if you had to pick one of the characters and the ending of the game was to kill the other one? That would be so awesome. But they can't do that because that's taking too big a risk for them. And really what they needed to do was take a risk at making a good, normal game not bloated and not getting involved in the culture war and calling everybody racist and threatening to sue everybody that's talking shit about their game. Man, I am so glad that Ubisoft is in trouble for this. And Japan is not happy. Even the Prime Minister is not happy about this game because it's disrespectful. And Mudahar's not talking about all of that stuff that's in this game, all the disrespectful stuff, which I don't even really care about that, but it's just something that Ubisoft really did not need.
Yasuke just fucking disappears into the alternate dimensions, and you're thrown into this combat encounter as a stealth character. Now, thankfully, this game has an option to enable guaranteed assassination, so sticking a knife in somebody's jugular actually kills them, instead of maiming them if they're slightly higher level than you. And it was because of that I was able to sneak around this area and get my target killed and then proceed through the game. Other than that, it would have been nearly impossible to play with hard difficulty and combating everyone in that area. And now, speaking of a level system, right, this is one of the things with Assassin's Creed Shadows that I think people are either going to love or they're going to hate. It's a game that is very much an RPG game. And that means you will have to think about what, items you bring along, what kind of perks those items have, how that factors into a build. These characters all have their individual skill trees, which come with, their own individual, gameplay style. So if you want to double assassinate, well, there's, from my understanding, only one character that can do that. If you want to have more combat abilities, you have to build a tree in that department. And you will have to think about your gear, you will have to think about a whole lot of this stuff as you play the game.
And there are just better RPGs out there, man. There are so many good RPGs. Why would they even try to make this one an RPG? They should have just went in a different direction than Valhalla. But Valhalla was so popular, I guess. It's not. It just made a whole lot of money. Not really, though. Not enough that it would save them from this travesty. They should have made a cheaper, smaller game with less stuff in it. And they would have made more money because they would have been charging the same price. I don't even know what they were thinking. They were thinking that it was going to be a hit for modern audiences. Everybody's going to play this. They're going to buy it $70 plus all the DLC. Plus all the microtransactions that they're inevitably going to put in it because they need more money.
So the game is very level gated. There's a lot of regions that say you can't go into them. There's locked by level 35 requirements. It's insane. So you really are kind of playing a very linear style Assassin's Creed game where you have to follow a specific pathway, and deviating from it often means death. And as you're doing that pathway, you have to constantly be looking at your level. So sometimes
So it's a garbage RPG that's linear. Why? Why? Just why? They tried to make an RPG, but they also made it linear. If we want you to do all these different play styles, but if you deviate off of the path that we set for you, then you're gonna die. So there's really no point. It's just like how it feels changes.
main mission can be 6 levels higher than you. So what you're supposed to do is go look for side objectives and basically grind those out so you can get the XP and level up and level up. So there is padding, there is bloat, and there is that standard Assassin's Creed modern shit that I think people are getting a little bit tired of.
We got tired of it a long time ago. We got tired of it when Origin came out, when Odyssey came out, and then Valhalla. I didn't play them, but I watched my friends play them, and I watched gameplay for all of them. I didn't watch much of it. I watched a lot of it. I watched a whole lot of it, probably about 60 hours of each one. I just couldn't finish watching it. So it's not like I have zero knowledge of these games.
Me included. Now, that being said, I don't know if I'm really going to have the stones to finish this game because I just want to play the assassination stuff. I really feel like having an RPG thrown at me with tons of bloat is not something I enjoy. The storyline is not something that I'm overly interested in. It's your standard revenge story. There's talks of conspiracies and hidden objects, and there's even a kind of nod to the sci-fi storyline in the future, the modern day assassin story. But all of that is just literally tiny crumb dressing in a grand scheme of a revenge story that I don't think is really gripping me as much as I think the developers wanted it to. And that's pretty much all it comes down to. It's not a bad game. I will never say Assassin's Creed Shadow is a bad game, But I'm just gonna keep it level with you, okay? It's a decent enough stealth action romp that I think you should pick up on a sale and play. Definitely not full price. Definitely don't. There's Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is coming out, or not Xenoblade Chronicles X. You might as well go pick that up. That is far more worth your money than this. But this is one of those games where I feel like it's the Call of Duty of stealth RPGs at this point.
The modern Call of Duty of stealth RPGs. Because if it was like Modern Warfare 2 era Call of Duty, that was Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood Revelation. It was just so much better back then. Gaming was just in a way better place. Without everybody being terminally online, everything's got to be games as a service. Everything's got to be all about the culture war and owning the chuds and making games for modern audiences, which never pans out because when you make games for modern audiences, you're making games for people in that era, and it's not going to hold up in the future.
And that's pretty much what it comes down to. I don't think this game has that level of soul that something like Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, shit, 3, if Black Flag had. I think if anything, it's just a further refinement of Assassin's Creed Origins or Odyssey. Certainly not Valhalla, which is the only mega positive in this vein. It's not AC Valhalla. Thank God for that. It has more of a focus on assassins, but that's really it. I kind of expected this game to have some level of black box assassinations, like big areas to go around in, but it doesn't. And I don't think we're going to get back to that level of Assassin's Creed. I think this is what sells for Ubisoft, and that's just the reality we live in. So anyways, I think this video has gone on long enough. I wanted to just get all my thoughts out because ultimately that's really all it comes down to. The game is a visually nice looking Ubisoft RPG. And that's the best praise I can provide it. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.
Well, there you have it. Assassin's Creed Shadows is not worth full price. It's probably worth like $30, $40. I'm not going to pay that much for it even. If it comes out for $10, I'll use it to test my graphics cards. That's probably what'll happen there. And this is in before the DLC and microtransaction nonsense gets pumped through it. And all of the new skins that you can pay for that used to be just in the game that you'd have to unlock. Straight up 6.5 out of 10. I was going to say it's a 7 out of 10, but from what I'm seeing, I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10. Just based on all of what I'm seeing for it, and I'm not even playing it yet. And I probably won't play it. It doesn't seem like something that I'd be interested in. And as a classic Assassin's Creed enjoyer, that's not good for Ubisoft. They need the classic Assassin's Creed enjoyers to be playing this game. And obviously there's going to be some, because they like to eat shit, I guess. I hope Ubisoft completely fails. They killed one of my favorite franchises, Prince of Persia. They had a new one come out and it was amazing. I loved it. And then they just trashed the company that made it, or the dev team that made it. And that's what started Assassin's Creed, man. I remember the game, the Prince of Persia game, that started Assassin's Creed. So disappointing, but I knew it was going to happen.